Hello and welcome. Continuing our series on the postgraduate reclassification process for high school student athletes as it relates to academics, athletics, socially, culturally, all those things. And we're going to be talking today. Everybody that I speak with in some way, shape, or form, I've had a relationship with for a period of time, but none more so than our guest today, someone that my son had as high school coach, life mentor, academic advisor, life friend uh, from Lawrence Academy, the head baseball coach in all things Lawrence Academy, Chris Margraf. Coach, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your very busy schedule today.
Well, it's an honor, Walt. I've been wanting to come on for a long time. I'm the old guard now. I mean, geez, I get the gray in the beard. Yeah, we were at this together in 2011, and it's crazy how time flies. And been doing this now, I think, 27 years. So you feel like a Ritz cracker that's been in the cupboard too long. You get a little stale, so you got to try to mix it up a little bit. But I baseball has become something special in the Northeast for a sport that probably predominantly is a Southern sport in terms of just kids going off to good top tier Division I programs. But I think kids understand that you can get a good education here and understand that we don't have a horse in the race when it comes to I don't get paid more or less whether the kid goes to Stanford or not. But we do care about the kid overall, and we really don't want them defining their who they are as a person based on their baseball abilities. And so, at the same time, we want to win games and we want to be competitive and we want to make sure that we have a team that's kids that are kind and caring and personable and but also that have that competitive edge and that fire. And so that's kind of the pitch. I mean, I'm much more into kind of the awareness element, the George Mumford stuff, the mindful athlete. Gotten much more into us kind of finding ways to be here now instead of getting lost in our habituated thought patterns and things like that. So I guess there are some things that I've taken from myself, considering that I have my own edges that I have to deal with. But and I think being around these kids in so many different capacities, from the standpoint of teaching them, being in the dorm with them, advising them, and so on. So there's so much more that goes into working with these kids than just the baseball piece.
Well, I want to set the stage for parents. 2009, my oldest son, Kyle, was a senior in high school at the time. Tyler was a sophomore in high school, and they had won a state championship in football. Both boys participated. They played basketball, and then they had just come off a state championship in baseball and was approached by Coach Margraf in 2009, about the opportunities with Lawrence Academy. And to put things in perspective, the ISL, which I'm going to have Coach Margraf share some insights as to that conference and the schools within it, presented an opportunity for Tyler. And at that point, my then ex-wife, now still ex-wife, and I had discussed the priorities of trying to trade athletic ability for academic excellence. And so we as parents began to undertake the reclassifying of Tyler. And, it's a topic that's very heavily discussed by parents, all sports, not just baseball. But in today's world with college athletics and the pending settlement agreement with the NCAA and Congress hanging and looming, reclassifying versus postgraduate. That's what we're talking about. Postgraduate, you're completing your high school experience all 4 years, and then you have that extra year, a postgraduate year at schools. Well, Lawrence Academy, the ISL, they do not have a postgraduate component, but you do have the ability to be a repeat junior or reclass. And I had that opportunity with Tyler. One of my biggest regrets as a parent is not reclassifying Tyler. He went from his sophomore year at Auburn High School to his junior year in Lawrence, and it proved somewhat challenging the first 3 to 4 months. But Chris, if you can talk about others that you and I have worked with over the last 15 or so years, and they come in, either they're repeating their junior year, repeating their sophomore year. We have a student, you have a student there now this year from Canada. We've had students in the past, not only from Massachusetts, but over in New England. Talk about that reclassifying process for all students at Lawrence Academy.
Well, all right. Thanks, Walt. I mean, this is one of those things that probably has evolved more and more from a baseball standpoint since I started coaching. Usually, from a hockey standpoint, it was really there. But um, first of all, I mean, you have to look at it from an academic standpoint. Is it really going to
Exactly.
help me? And is it going to give me not that they're if they're coming from a Catholic school, if they're coming from a public high school, which most of them do, very few really transfer. Some do, some transfer from another private school and will repeat. Um, but usually it's like there's a lot of settling in to a community like this, particularly when you've got boarding students as well. And again, there's always going to be a high caliber athlete, whether it's in football, whether it's in hockey, and there's going to be a number of them. So it's not like you're going to walk in the door and the whole school is going to welcome you with open arms and say, the savior is here for this particular sport. So it's a humbling experience to make that type of transition. And we want to be sensitive to the emotional element on that, learning to live away from home, um, learning to kind of abide by the rules at a boarding school, supervised study hall, all of those things. And really, Walt, the huge thing is learning to be a self advocate, which can only prepare you for later on down the road. Um, Harder when we'll see those repeat freshmen come in. That's usually the best year to do it, obviously, because we're accepting more kids then. We could be accepting 80 ninth graders where you might be taking 15 juniors. So from a coaching standpoint, when we're looking to recruit, do we like to get the repeat kid? We do if it's the right situation for them academically. And the reason why it really works is because we're now bringing in somebody who's kind of gone through it a little bit, is a little bit more mature, um, is can step in at times to a leadership role. Uh, the repeat juniors are pure gold in the sense that there's so many teams that are going after repeat juniors at Lawrence or whatever private school, whether it's football, hockey, baseball, girls soccer, girls softball, whatever. And so there's only so many spots available. So we have to be very strategic. And a lot of times we can piggyback. We're looking for maybe a repeat junior who plays football like Tyler did and can also play baseball. Those are those are those are pure gold. Um, but in terms of so you have to it has to be the right situation. I would say it is a challenge when you're a junior, like it was for Tyler, where you're leaving your friends, you've just won a championship, everybody knows you so well, and there tends to be a lot of notoriety in the press when you're going to a public school, high school. You get a lot of press that way. Where for us, it's like I was saying this to Walt before we came on. We don't get paid more or less whether we win an ISL championship
Right.
or our kids go to Stanford or our kids go to Wake Forest or whatever. My job is to be a good teacher and a good, dorm parent or good advisor first and foremost.
Life
Having said,
mentor.
yeah, yeah. Having said that, we want to win, and we want to win at the highest level. So we're just a little bit more. We don't promote it as much because we want to make sure that we're not being perceived as some sort of jock school. We want it to be equal across the arts, across sports, whatever, extracurriculars. Okay. So when you come here, you have to eat humble pie. I mean, Tyler came in here with another kid who ultimately, Shabazz Napier, was, drafted by the Portland Blazers and won a national championship for UConn. And so the two of them, like that's to have two kids go off in the same year, really, to play. Now, Shabazz never graduated from here because Calhoun wanted him earlier. And it was one of those things where we couldn't even get him a diploma. And they get like, oh my God, because he couldn't graduate from here. Kids like that don't want to leave early. Now, having said that, Shabazz was a great kid, played football. And he rose to another level, that highest level, UConn to Portland Trailblazers, Tyler from Vanderbilt to obviously going to San Francisco Giants.
And what I want you to squeeze in here is, oh, by the way, the conference that Lawrence Academy plays in, the baseball programs, for point of reference, hockey, girls soccer, lacrosse, all of these student athletes, they're going to NESCAT schools, they're going to Patriot League schools, they're going to Ivy
Correct.
League schools, they're going to Stanford,
Yeah.
they're going to Wake, they're going to Duke, they're going to Vanderbilt. So this is not like you're going to a school and you're the island of misfits and you're just competing. This is elite
Yeah. And I would,
college prep
yeah. In the
athletics.
college placement, whether you're at Lawrence Academy and if you, once you get into the weeds with regards to understanding these schools, because these are many of these schools are heavily endowed. I mean, Groton School could have an endowment over $400 million. If you're looking at Andover and Exeter that are not in our league, they're $1 billion. They're like really wealthy colleges. Lawrence is a little engine that could. Now, having said that, compared to other schools throughout the country, our endowment's what, $40 million. I mean, we look rich. But again, the league in and of itself, the independent school league that we are in, is built off of the academic piece first and foremost. These schools are all steeped in tradition. 1793 was when our school was founded. So, and you look at it, and it's an
Wow.
interesting makeup because we have half boarding schools, we have half day, and then you got Lawrence Academy that's like this boarding day school where you have about 200 boarders and 200 day students, and you have this cozy little niche. But from a baseball standpoint, it's been a real challenge for boarding schools to be as competitive as the day schools, because day schools like BB&N, Belmont Hill, St. Sebastian's, Roxbury Latin, they're all kind of inside that 495 belt. So they used to be able to attract really good full pay local kids, and they just beat the bejesus out of us most of the time, particularly a school like BB&N, which kind of, ironically enough, Rick Forestier was coaching at the time. Now Craig McLaughlin does, but they put the ISL on the map from a baseball standpoint because we primarily were hockey focused. So I would have a lot of hockey kids. In 2000, I had 4 of them play Division I hockey that were also really good baseball players. But baseball wasn't taken as seriously, and it wasn't really until Tyler came. I would say Logan Gillis helped to build us. And then when you had Tyler and you had Joe Napolitano, who is a repeat, who went to Wake Forest, you have Max Tishman, who's a repeat, who goes to Wake Forest.
Sean
Then you get this.
Mulcahy.
Then you get Brady Burns, who's a kid from Vegas, whose brother was even better, but couldn't stay at Lawrence. Had some things that he had to deal with.
Right.
But Brady himself was a good hockey player, but ultimately ended up probably being a better baseball player. And so that's what started the engine churning. And if we look at the history to provide a little bit more context, is that draft year that Tyler came out, you had a lot of New England guys in that first round, in Corey Springer, in Matt Barnes, Corey Springer having gone to Avon as a repeat, but then obviously went to UConn, and then Matt Barnes. And those guys in that year, for whatever reason, I felt like it really put the ISL in New England baseball on the map, where kids were even willing to come from Tallahassee, Florida, to reclassify and go to Lawrence. Were they going to be able to play as much baseball? No. But I would say the vast majority of, and Walt, you can correct me if I'm wrong on this one, the vast majority of Division One or Division Three, they love to see the multi-sport athlete. So they were getting a kid who wasn't playing 120 baseball games and was burnt out. They were getting a kid who might have done that, but decided that their academics were really important, and they still weren't going to compromise their baseball because it was still really good.
Right. And on it's worth noting here for parents on that baseball team that Coach Margraf just alluded to. You had Joe Napolitano, ended up BC, and then subsequently St. John's. Max Tishman went to Wake Forest and then USC grad. You had Gio, who went to Brown to play football, was a 4-year football guy. Brady Burns went to Niagara. Sean Mulcahy went to Bowdoin.
Delaney. Yeah, Bowden.
Mulaney went to
And
Bowdoin.
let's say that just for one second. Let's start with Mulaney because that's the perfect example. Sean Mulaney was looked at by Dartmouth, but he couldn't. It was the hitting issue for him.
Right.
But when you get into the nuances of that, see, I'm a college counselor as well, so I understand that. He had a 1050 board score and a 3.5 in regular level classes. That wasn't going to cut it at Bowdoin unless they had a band. They had a C band for him.
E-band.
And
Right.
Coach Connolly gives out one C band every other year. He flip flops with soccer. And every NESCAC school does it a little differently. So in some ways, that turned out to be a scholarship for Mulaney. You don't look at it like that. Those C bands are pure gold. They are. I've used this term already, but they are. It's like coaches. That coach. I mean, Conley had to know that Sean was coming, because if Sean had said no, I'm not going to. There were another 10 kids on that list for that one C band. And what did that mean for him? It meant that he had an opportunity to play 4 years and get an unbelievable education at Bowdoin. And now he's in law school. And I
I
would
mean,
say this, and then
right.
you've worked with Agabitis too. And
Right.
James Agabitis is a perfect example too of a kid who repeated from Lexington Christian, came here. His dad was a BB&N guy, coached there, but ran a landscaping firm. And he came here as a repeat, played hockey for a year, scored his only goal against BB&N. It was great. And ended up really maturing and focusing as a middle infielder and had a choice to make. And Walt, you worked with him directly. And the choice was, am I going to go to Tulane or am I, and play for Travis Jewett, or am I going to go to Middlebury, um, you know, and play for Coach Leonard? And he would have been guaranteed 4 years, probably starting as a C bander at Middlebury. They loved him. Now,
You
having
know, I
said that,
I
he
think
wasn't
back.
sacrificing his academics so to go to Tulane.
Right. And the biggest thing is again, if we use Sean as an example, I want parents to understand that you may not be familiar with NESCAT schools, but Sean Mulaney essentially now he is in a tremendous network. He has a tremendous network of the NESCAT group of schools as a graduate, now going to law school, as Coach Margraf alluded to. But we've had young men that have gone from Lawrence to Wake Forest. Coach Margraf and I have helped boys go to Tulane, Merrimack, now Maryland, Dayton,
Stanford,
yeah,
Max Meyer.
Stanford. Now, so this is not a baseball centric discussion. When we talk reclassifying, when I'd love for you to discuss Max, one of the key components to college recruiting that I try to get parents to understand is, and Chris, you can speak to this, and then Dave and I laugh about it today, but Max's parents were blowing smoke out of their ears because they thought I was leading them down a path. And baseball recruiting is a craft. You have to have relationships with coaches, and you have to get athletes and parents to be patient with the process. Because when we're dealing with the Stanfords and the Wakes and the Vanderbilts and the Bates and the Tufts, their processes are very, very different. And so it's not just, hey, we're going to recruit you as a freshman or sophomore in high school and you're going to come in. You have to really prove yourself academically, and you have to prepare yourself for the interview process with these schools. But talk a little bit about Max and his parents and the benefit of going to Lawrence Academy. He was at Belmont High School, public high school in Massachusetts. He completed his junior year in high school. He was not on the path to what he envisioned for his college recruiting, a few Division III schools. It was very late in the process. In fact, I believe it was August. I picked up the phone. I talked to Coach Margraf, and God bless him. He was able to work that through, but repeating a junior year at Lawrence Academy gave Max the runway. He is now a Stanford graduate. Oh, by the way, he went to Omaha 3 out of his 4 years, and the fourth year was a COVID year. And he's got a graduate degree, I believe, from Georgetown. And this is all based on his ability to get to Lawrence Academy and be around somebody like yourself. But the reclassification process is worth it for all these athletes that we've just spent time talking about.
Yeah, and I think with Max, so as a coach, you're in a unique situation because you do get that phone call. You want to make sure you have the room because you just can't take anybody. So we then have to go through the admissions process. It's not automatic. In this case, was there financial aid on the table? A lot of times money isn't there, even if this could be, again, here's a Stanford kid. His dad went to Amherst College, so he knew the value of that education. The mother as well. I mean, great family. I would say in that situation, Lawrence wasn't automatic. I mean, they're a Belmont family where inside that 495 belt, where you're getting enticed by BB&N or you can get enticed by Milton, and it's like, what's going to make them come to Lawrence Academy? And that was where Walt came in a lot because you know, people have a ton of respect for you, Walt, but also you had lived that experience at Lawrence. And for some people, like it's just you get the right feeling and the right fit. For Max, he had good board scores. He was a pretty good student, sitting on 3 C's at Belmont High School. So when he came here and repeated, I think, to be honest with you, our concern was, is baseball gonna is Stanford really interested in him baseball wise? Because you're dealing with coaching staff out there, Iger, those guys, they didn't. They knew nothing about reclassifying. They knew nothing about postgraduate or anything like that. They liked Max. The biggest issue for Max was he had a C in calculus his senior year. And, this is where for me, in terms of my experience as a college counselor and even as a teacher, that was the end that I was working on for Max. They already evaluated him baseball wise. And I do think sometimes this is where the AAU programs it becomes a challenge because the kid walks into his AAU facility and they're like, well, why haven't you signed with Stanford yet? What's going on? What's going on? And they don't necessarily, it's not their fault, but they don't really necessarily know that this is a unique situation. Stanford offers 10. Stanford offers 10. They're pink, handwritten. They don't even categorize who's the top recruiter, who isn't. It's
Right.
just 10. Here they are. And the issue for Max was the calculus, and we had a talk with him, and ultimately it worked out. And I'll never forget when we had gone down to do a cover shoot on New England Baseball Journal, and I was with 4 or 5 other top coaches: Rick Forstier, Draper, Danny Donato, those guys. And I got a phone call that he had been accepted, that he was going. So, but you're on eggshells there, and so that was all. And then in following up with him and in talking to their coaching staff, they just loved him. He was just a good kid, and he was not. I mean, he did pitch. He pitched a couple innings in the College World Series, and yeah, he had his challenges, but he figured it out, and ultimately ended up with a good Stanford education and a graduate degree to boot. And yeah, it's a really really good story in terms of, because we have some schools that are very very competitive that are sending kids to Harvard, Yale, Princeton all the time. That would be like a Groton School, I've already mentioned, or St. Paul's. They're not in our league anymore, but it could be a Nobles or whatever. So for a kid from Lawrence Academy to go to Stanford, and that's where we get to the point where, from an athletic standpoint, whether it's baseball, football, hockey, whatever, softball, our athletes do go to good schools because that is a bucket that can help a kid get into a school. And if you can
And,
use your baseball, as long as you're a good kid doing as hard as you can in the classroom, you can, that can really help. It can be a hook for you.
well, I
Um,
think you just nailed something that I want to really emphasize, and this isn't meant for validation of I was doing this with Chris back in '09, helping boys. I had no idea, and we would talk about current seniors and helping them, with regard to relationships. But one thing that not all travel athletic programs understand is the academic pathway to acceptance. It's not, is he a good baseball player? Okay, he can get right in. It's not, it doesn't work that way for 99% of student athletes. If you're an elite right-handed pitcher, maybe, but everybody else, there has to be an academic component. There has to be admissions process, a admissions liaison with some of the Ivy League schools or the NESCAT schools or Stanford's, Duke's, Vanderbilt's, et cetera. And that's where a school like Lawrence Academy is going to tremendously benefit not only baseball players, but students as well as student athletes. And I would just love for you to kind of wrap up and talk now for point of edification. I would love for everyone to understand, Chris, during Tyler's time at Lawrence Academy, Coach Margraff's wife, Libby, was an active, administrator at the school. In fact, she was head of
Dean of
security,
Students, yeah, yeah.
a dean of students, proctor. But so there's a relationship that Tyler, to this day, as a 32-year-old, has with the Margraff family. And at the time, your daughters were what, 4 and 2, maybe.
Sure, absolutely.
And now they're college freshmen and high school athletes. So there's an upside to this. You're going through your high school experience, but you're also part of a campus and a group of
Or you're going to
adults.
be young Beede. That's where he's going to learn music. That's where he's going to learn acting. I mean, it's like, God forbid. It's like finally an opportunity to be a kid too and try some different things.
And I tell people Tyler Beede was the most introverted person the world had ever known. If he uttered 2 syllables, that was a long paragraph for him. And by the time he left Lawrence Academy, and one of his professors and the faculty at Lawrence, Fagelbaum, Dr. Fagelbaum,
Fagema, yeah.
it got Tyler to be this orator, that I had never even seen that side. And he began to do singing, and he was very engaged and involved on the Lawrence Academy campus. And this is why this particular episode and segment with regard to our postgraduate versus reclassifying, is it a fit? Is it something for parents to consider? This isn't baseball. This isn't a baseball centric topic or decision. I made it clear to Coach Margraff in 2009 that as a dad, I wanted to make sure that my sons, in this case Tyler, took advantage of the opportunity that athletics would provide for him, football and baseball, and then trade that for academic excellence. And so, Chris, if you could just share,
This is
how do
what's most
people?
important right here. That's a young Coach Margraff, but
Oh,
there
that's
is
a
a
wow!
young, that's a
Look at that!
young Tyler.
Look at
Tyler
you,
Beede.
Captain! Wow!
Wow, Captain.
But I will tell you that team. Now, I've coached at the college level. I've coached at the Legion level, travel level. That team at Lawrence Academy. I mean, they found ways to win. Our right fielder, Jackson Farrelly, I mean, another piece to the puzzle, but he would come up with a single, at the bottom of the order. It was just one of those teams that truly emphasized and lived within the group. There was no one person that everybody leaned on. It was an entire group of 18 boys, and the coaching staff that year was tremendous. But Chris, I would love for you to kind of wrap up. I'm very cognizant of your time commitments. I would love, how do people get in contact with Lawrence Academy? How are people going to reach out? What's the best time of the year to do that? How should they reach out to you? This is
Sure,
going to
yeah.
reach people from Canada. We have a young man from Ontario, Canada area that's doing a reclass year as a 2026. These people want to know, how can they reach out to Lawrence Academy?
I mean, obviously, anytime I try to pride myself in giving people my cell phone anytime they want to reach out. I mean, my email's available. You can just go online. You can
I'll add
Google
that.
cmargraff@lacademy.edu. When it comes to signing up for a visit and a tour, you just go right into our website to the admissions section, and you can sign up right there. And if you're lukewarm on it, then obviously we can have a conversation before you schedule a visit. We have a bunch of open houses that we have. There's just, if you want to learn more, um, about our program. There's a bunch of articles in the New England Baseball Journal too. I just take pride in the fact that as coaches who also teach in a day and age where there are more and more AAU coaches that are now entering the ranks of coaching at private schools, which is great. It's just the realities of outside coaching versus somebody who's internal. But I'm proud of our league. I'm proud of the fact that we've just started having a playoff system put in place. Proud of the fact that we try to play 29 games in a 2 month period, and I'm proud of the fact that even when you lose to a kid like Wainwright at St. Sebastian's, when you have a kid like Payon on the mound, and it's like really 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 good baseball, and sometimes you just got to tip your cap. But I think yeah, getting in touch, and it's good to look at a number of schools. I mean, I do want to end with that. As much as we want you to have you at Lawrence Academy, there's just only so much financial aid that can go around. And so you're best off looking at 4 or 5 schools. And then when we start talking PGs, which we didn't talk a lot about because we don't have them in our league, there's some schools, some leagues that you can only have this many PGs. Right? I have 2 kids, 2 seniors last year, the McLaughlin twins. Their older brother played for me, was player of the year 2 years ago when we won the league. He's at Tufts. But Teddy ended up going to Avon for a PG year, and Otto ended up going to Canterbury. Otto's going to go to Clark and play baseball there, and Teddy's going to be playing baseball at Trinity. And I don't want to undersell that. Like, I have 2 kids, and one of my best friend growing up, best man in my wedding, he's his son Liam Yardley is at Bates, and then we have Braden Ryan, who went to Merrimack and now at Maryland. His brother Keegan is also at Bates, and that's another story in and of itself. But he went down to have a workout with Coach Woodson down at Richmond, and then you ended up with Coach Martin being there because he's best friends with Woodson and watching him play. I just don't think it was going to work for him at Richmond, even though that's where he really wanted to go. But he ended up at Bates, and he started every game this past year as a center fielder. Stole 120 bases for me in 4 years. I mean, he was unbelievable. But you got to figure it out, the hitting piece. And so sometimes, what you don't want to do is compromise your education. So, if you can use your abilities as a baseball player to get into a school that you normally wouldn't get into, and you're a pretty good student, you do that.
Well, I really want to thank you for taking the time to join us because, as always, your enthusiasm and your passion for not only Lawrence Academy, but for the students that attend Lawrence Academy comes shining through. Parents, I'm going to have all of the Lawrence Academy information. Obviously, I'm a little, bit more supportive of a Lawrence Academy because I have an affinity, and as a parent, I have a deep appreciation for the faculty and for the administration, and obviously the school itself, the grounds. It's palatial. I challenge anyone there from anywhere in the country, visit Groton, Mass in the fall, and you'll be smitten the minute you walk on campus. So, Chris, thank you so much. I look forward to catching up with you about some of the guys on the roster this year, and I deeply appreciate you. Please tell
Well,
Libby.
I just wanted, and I'm a talker, so I want to end with my relationship with you and what you do for these kids. And I don't think it's ever wavered. I mean, we all have certain levels of intensity to us. And if we didn't put ourselves out there and have our personalities, we wouldn't be who we are. But in terms of our relationship over the years, in whether you're helping me to recruit strong student athletes to Lawrence Academy, or you're helping me to place students at great colleges and universities, I've always had the utmost respect. And we've been able to maintain this relationship ever since you first arrived on campus, and it really is special. And I think from my standpoint, in terms of dealing with whether you're recruiting or you're trying to place kids in schools, you always have the best interest of the kids at heart, and that's what it is in the end. And I think you did that for Tyler as well. So,
Well, I appreciate you taking the time. There are days where I wonder, but at the end of the day, Tyler is a educated young man, and he did so because of his ability, not only as a human but as an athlete. So, Chris, thank you very, very much,
You're very
parents.
welcome. Thank
All the
you.
contact information for Lawrence Academy will be on the podcast in the description as well as in the YouTube video. Take care,
Happy to
Cap.
come on anytime. Take care, Captain. Thank you.